Okay, well, I think I'm live, so let me double check here real quick. Just to check in here real fast. So, okay, so looks like I'm up and running and perfect. Hey, my name is Theurgy. I create role-playing games. I illustrate them online, and I had been focusing my attention on creating Spelljammer, combat, and exploration. God, it took like 19 months for us to make this monster, but it's finally done and published. You can see links to it. Hey, how you doing, Super? For anyone that's not already indoctrinated, you can check it out here on the DMsGuild using that link here. It's a thick 80 pages of mechanics and a 25-page conversion guide for Lattice Araxis. Check it out. It's pretty cool. It comes with like over 100 something. Like these are all tokens that are included in a zip file, and there's a maps and all sorts of stuff to help make the thing go, and to basically make 5e combat work at the 50 and 500 foot scale, so that instead of being medium-sized characters, you're now like in spidercraft up to 50 feet or like vessels up to 500 feet. And that's kind of what we're doing here today. Let's get this out of the way here. I can still hear myself, but right now we are converting. Let me see if I can make myself quiet. Like, I don't want to mute myself because that tells the bots that I'm spam. But like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notifications when we're live in the video. Wait a second. Hey, we have new subscribers again. Thanks a lot, guys, for taking interest in the stuff that we do here. I just posted that I'm on the X Twitter platform. I'm at Theurgy. And big shout out to the Spelljammer Preservation Society, our Spelljammer subreddit, you can see it there, r/Spelljammer. Big support. A lot of folks have been asking questions and taking interest as have come from Reddit. Reddit's an awesome community when you're in a neat little sub-community like this one. So big shout out to y'all. And so let's see. Yeah, we're building. Okay, so for those that know Lattice Araxis from the 2022 box set that Wizards of the Coast released, Vocath has a base that at some point during the adventure the team convenes at with other potential spacefaring fleets to form an armada to go attack your enemies, and it happens to fit within a 500 foot space. So hey, let's make it into a cool ship, since cool ships can be that big. So we did, and here we are. We're in the process of building that out. Hey, Hornetica, it's good to see you. So this is where we're at right now. When we left off last time, we were basically built. These are 50-foot squares. So just to remind everyone, a 10 by 10 square at the 50-foot scale is a 500-foot space that a ship or any object could occupy. Spelljamming helms, minor helms can operate or empower ships up to 50 feet in size, and major helms can for ships up to 500 feet in size. There are no ships up to 500 feet that are in Spelljammer's Adventures in Space, but there were ships in 2nd edition that were. I'm going to see if I can just start doodle bugging here a little bit while I'm yammering. But yeah, so there was the Elven Armada, or also known as the Monarch. The Ogre Mammoth was a mammoth of a ship. It was super big. Let's see. That's not quite. This is the one that I want to modify. So I'm going to duplicate this layer here and drop this one out. Is this how it do? Yeah, it does. Now that I have the proper angle on the legs facing towards the camera on the bottom side, I wanted to clean up the interior, just the outline of it. And I extracted the map from the Lattice Araxis adventure for us to overlay on the top side to build out the mecha components on the top when you're looking on the top side facing down. And so this is coming along. I am rather happy with this overall. I think my biggest endeavor is going, my biggest challenge in this endeavor is the way I'm supposed to be saying that, is how far down the rabbit hole am I going to let myself fall? Because there's the basic there's a basic footprint of it in a 500-foot space, and then there's the map to show like the ship floor plan, basically to depict how the base turns into the vessel, and then there is the internal map, so that you have the full like actual like deck plans for the ship itself. And then there is actually building an encounter in which you are using this ship to fight, hopefully alongside the characters as an ally. And then there's the actual process of scripting out all of what is effectively creating an adventure using a new ship in the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration document that I created that I was just showing on the DMsGuild. So how far down the rabbit hole do I go? I feel like everything I just described there is probably reasonable for us to dive down into. And I can still hear myself. I'm going to make that go away. I don't want to mute it though. They tell me that's bad. There. Let's see if that's going to work out. All right. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much as far down the hole I'm going to go. I don't think it needs to go any further than that. Creating an encounter where Vocath is your ally and fighting Prince Zelth. Oh, then I have to... Okay, so if Prince Zelth gets chased off instead of being able to throw his weight around, that is going to restructure some of the third and fourth act for the actual adventure. So if I'm going to do that, then I also need to provide what if content, additional what if content for the Light of Xeraxis. So let's see, we're looking at probably 2 pages of illustration dedicated to the maps, like actually in the PDF, like floor plans with numbers and shit. That'll probably eat up 2 full pages, and then we'll have the explanation of the fleet statistics for both Vocath's ship and the characters, plus all of the Doomspace factions assembling and having their first go together in a small squadron of just the diplomats / war leaders that warlords that are attending Vocath's. What word am I trying to say here? The word is, I don't know why I'm going so hard on outlining this thing, because I'm just gonna have to do it over again with like better art. I'm feeling compelled to do this right now. I don't necessarily know the why of it. I know it's not the most efficient thing I could be doing. Being inefficient seems to be my bag this week, so I may as well just fucking embrace it and own that. I just must be going through transition from completing this project into gearing up the Eberron project as my full-time gig again. So we'll go through that together, shan't we? And hey, thanks guys for being here, by the way. While we're on the subject of being together, I think it's just fantastic that folks check out the stream, like what we got talking about here. Want to stick around and find out more about where we're going. Pretty fucking excited. The next, if the gods see fit that I remain alive for the next 5 years, I think I'm gonna have some really, really cool content out there. And I reckon 5 years from now I'll probably still be doing Magic the Gathering shit. Let's be real. I mean, I haven't even gotten to Strixhaven yet. Never mind. I will say though, now that we're building these upscaling mechanics, I can start looking towards doing the Theros God auras as basically mana spins for characters to have upscaled versions of like summoning. Okay, hold on. Thanks, Super. Really appreciate that. So yeah, Theros, if you're into it, you know. But let me dive deeper with you. Let me get back on the right menu. Here we go. Good. So Theros is a Magic the Gathering setting. It reflects the flavor of ancient Greece, of myth, right? Like mythological Greece is kind of the shtick of what Theros is. Can I say that a third way? Fuck it. So it's a Magic the Gathering card game, right? So you throw down mana to summon creatures to attack stuff. You can create enchantments to have effects, like to modify the rules of the game, or to modify what creatures can do. Like when you summon a creature, it's basically like having like a monster or a player character in your 5e game. And then depending on what that card is capable of doing, it basically has like basically a mana supply that it can do things like summon additional allies, or like phase out, become invisible, do life drain damage, negate a spell effect, all sorts of cool crap. Just cool crap. Magic cards can do cool crap. And when you're translating them into 5e, you're looking at each of these creature cards as like, if this was a monster, how would it translate into something that would last 3 or 4 rounds of combat with characters in a D&D game? It's basically how you should be thinking about translating stuff. Like, what could I have this thing do for the 3 rounds that it's going to remain alive? That would be cool and kind of captures the flavor of what's on that card. So then you just build some like bonus action or like multi-attack action ideas, and you kind of slap those down, and then, you know, Bob's your uncle. You've got a Magic the Gathering type creature. And so a lot of my endeavors has been towards creating a color mana system so that characters in D&D can throw color mana around instead of spell slots, using the 5 colors of magic instead of the 8 schools of magic that is typically portrayed in D&D, but has, in my opinion, like virtually no narrative flavor, like whatsoever. Like, how do you tell a conjuration spell from an evocation spell before you make a saving throw? If you haven't made a saving throw yet, how would you know? Like, is there any unifying universe? Like, is there any universal means of describing evocation spells versus illusion, necromancy, conjuration, abjuration, bloody blah is your uncle? No, there isn't. But if you're using a color mana system, if I'm throwing a white spell aid, there's going to be some white stuff going on with my magic, or there's going to be blue stuff going on, blah blah blah. So that's the color magic system. Use spell points instead of spell slots. It's a whole thing. And oh, by the way, if anyone's actually interested in checking that stuff out, it is also on the DMsGuild here. And there's a shitload to it. There's a pay what you want for an entire list of all the spells and all the colors that they're in. Spell point Warlocks is just absolutely crushing it as a pay what you want. Tap and Tap Burn Elemental Key has the 4 elements as well as color, so that you can play either using the 5 color magic paradigm or the 4 elements, like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Actually, if you check my what was it, March 29th, 2024 play of the Martial Power System, I was making a Dwarven Earthbending Fighter Battlesmith to playtest at 5th level in Drunken Yoda's upcoming 5-room dungeon playtest that he's playing on Thursday. So I won't be here on Thursday. But these are all the different books in here. And so Theros is a Magic the Gathering setting. And one of the things about Theros is that there's 15 different gods. One major god for each color, and then minor gods for Ravnica style dual colors, like black and white and blue and green and whatever, blah blah blah. I'm not a huge expert on Theros, so I'm shaky on the names. It's my least favorite of the 3 Magic the Gathering settings that have been released for D&D by Magic the Gathering to date so far. But having said that, in the Magic the Gathering card set, it's particularly interesting because they have these things called creature enchantments, where when they appear on the battlefield, they're not actually creatures. They're just like this essence that modifies the rules of the game, like a god may well do. But once you have enough devotion or creatures, enchantments, and artifacts of the same color as the god, then the god can take on a creature humanly form and be a combatant during the game to fight enemies and stuff like that. So the way that can translate into 5e, now that we're starting to deal with upcasting, like these things are depicted as like being a mile tall, just like stepping over mountains. And they're gods. They're immense. They're impossible to miss. They fill the sky. And so us with upcasting mechanics now, we can have clerics, or they have this piety system, which is the more points of basically brownie points that you gain as a champion of the god that you've chosen. You gain basically this rack of points, and we have a renown system that can be converted into effective casting levels. So ranks 1 to 5, and we have the CR as well as like the number of renown points you have to accumulate to gain new levels of piety. And doing so would allow us to add a spell power to any character's list that has a mana pool, which is basically on a scale of 1 to 10, how big is the god that you're going to create, and it scales from level 1 to 19. So by level 19, you can channel 10 mana or spell or like spell points at a time to be able to cast this god aura that basically becomes like a guardian spirit aura around you, or you could conjure it as a god that becomes basically a god pet, like Pokemon or whatever. That as you pump more mana into it, becomes larger and larger and higher CR. So like it would scale from like 5 feet to 50 feet to 500 feet. And I'm still figuring out the scale for that, but we have the language to do that inside of this book now. So I can start creating Theros project. When we update the color mana thing, I can do a Theros document now that talks about if your piety is this level, you can invest this, and by the time that would publish, all 13 classes have a mana pool of 10 or more mana. And so they would be able to use whatever level they're at to be able to summon the god that they champion. And kind of like with the mecha mechanics we're in the process of developing to go along with fightership combat, you basically become this god aura that you're basically piloting as an incorporeal spirit inside of the god machine. And it basically becomes a Theros living mecha sort of thing that you're basically summoning your god to basically pilot in battle against titanic creatures. It's another way to be able to express the Mecha Kaiju book, but it's using a distinct because each god has a creature enchantment card that you cast it, and then again, when you have enough piety or you have enough devotion on the board, or you've invested enough mana to worship this god, it manifests into a creature to battle with you. So that's the idea that goes on behind it. But it's still a work in progress. So cool. We've cleaned up this edge here. And this is no way near done, but you know what? Fuck it. Why don't we start locking shit down? So I'm going to do the bottom half cleanup. So I'm going to drop this in opacity here, and I'm just going to start doing line art. I'm going to do cleaner line art for this, so that we can actually call it complete. And I'm going to drop that down to, what is the width that should be here? Right, that drops down like that. There, and that's black there, and this should probably be what? 3, 2, 1. So let's see what's 4 pixels. I could do 4 pixels for out. No, I'm gonna do 3 pixels for an outline, and then we'll do 2 pixels for interior, and then 1 pixel for decorative filigree. So that Theros project's been on my mind. I envisioned that about 2 years ago, but hadn't published any tech in that direction yet. And this is the Spelljammer book that we created is basically me back-ending into mecha, mass combat, Theros gods, and kaiju. So like there's a lot of things that are being like kind of like you can already see it if you're familiar with the document. You kind of see where all these things are already at. Right now, it's just codified for ships with siege weapons at the 500 or smaller foot scale, but there's further direction we can go with those mechanics into squads, like soldiers, legions. At one point, I was talking about converting the entire board game of Warriors of Krynn, and converting them into our combat battle system so that you could keep playing D&D throughout the entire Dragonlance series. But it would take me 2 years to finish that project. Like, hands down, definitely a 2-year project just for that alone. Just because of the amount of technical data. I mean, I'd have to translate the entire campaign and the board game to make that work as a complete piece. And I have no idea how I would ever be able to justify doing that unless I was somehow getting Kickstarter money for doing a DMsGuild project, which is allowed if I'm kickstarting the artwork. But I can't actually, I can't promise anyone a free copy of anything that's published on the DMsGuild, which makes me think maybe I shouldn't be publishing these ideas on a DMsGuild. So it's like, at what point do I want to stop building Spelljammer stuff and start building just system, like 5e system neutral Creative Commons or OGL licensed stuff that's independent of any IPs? And the most logical answer to that question is, as soon as the things that I want to do stop relating to adventures and IPs that Wizards of the Coast controls. So if I could build a piece that has nothing to do with WOTC IPs, then I could publish that on ttrpg. But virtually everything that I've been designing for in the past few years has specifically been how to lean into, embellish, or improve these Wizards of the Coast controlled IPs. So it kind of has me trapped in this space. And I don't really feel trapped because, like I talked about before, these are all settings that, except for the Magic the Gathering stuff, these are all basically settings that oh God, that looks horrible, that I've been in love with since I was 16, 13, 12. And Magic the Gathering stuff, I've just enjoyed color magic in general since Alpha, 93, something like that. One of my friends in college picked up 6 decks and just played the fuck out of it all the time. She was obsessed with it. It was fun. It was fun going over to her pad and throwing some magic cards around and, being college kids. It was fun. So, and then I played with photocopied proxies at the local game shop for a while in the late 90s into 2000s, and then Wizards started to finally introduce that stuff into D&D. I mean, my first thoughts about what would Magic the Gathering and D&D be like together, and this was back in 3rd edition. And at the time, my off the cuff response was, "That's a neat idea, but it'd be a ton of work, and I don't know how valuable that is." And but I wasn't, over the next 20 years, I got really gonzo about how cool color mana really is as a narrative tool in D&D. And once I got into that fanatical space, then it pretty much locked down for me that I need to build that thing. So I built that thing. There's that. Yeah, I think I'm okay with that. That feels pretty good. There. Down to 2. Super ramble mode tonight, huh? Don't mind me, I'm just gonna ramble on and sing my song. Yeah, that's simple. I like that. Yeah, I like that. That feels good. Blip that out of the way. Fill in the rest of this. I might have those asteroid tokens bundled up and bundled with the Spelljammer book. That might happen before Saturday, but for certain on Saturday that I'll be publishing that book. I think I don't know what I'm doing Saturday this week. I honestly have no idea what I have planned. No, that's 4. That's too many. 3 is what I need. Oh, Muse is telling me that there's a decent chance that this commission that's been lurking in the wings is going to trigger. I think it's a painting of a crow in a tree. I'm not 100. I'm still waiting to see the picture. Well, I mean, I saw the picture, but I don't know specifically what is requested. Like, am I supposed to duplicate the picture, or am I supposed to like use that as inspiration to build upon and create a thing, or I don't know. So I'm waiting for feedback. Obviously, it's a casual thing, which is great. I like being casual with my commissions. But if that doesn't trigger, maybe I'll just work on this some more. That might make sense. I could also do some proofing for martial powers since I'll be firing up the playtest soon. I should probably focus on martial powers for a little bit more on Saturday. If the commission doesn't fire up, that's what I'll do. To make sure I've got enough playtest content built out to give everybody a few hours worth of fun. Feels pretty good. Coloring this beast is gonna just be fucking crazy. This is just the line art. This hasn't anything to do with the actual coloration that we're gonna get into, you know? I've got the anime Slayers in my mind. The motion picture, I absolutely adore it. The TV show itself is pretty fucking obnoxious, but I adore the movie. Slayers, the motion picture. That's how that goes. And great music, fun storyline. It has a real OVA feel to it. Like it feels like really playful and really well budgeted with stronger with movie quality animation that's superior to the budgeting that they had for the TV show. So it's a glam up in all ways, and it's lots of fun. So if you haven't seen it, again, Slayers, the motion picture, that's a really good 90s piece of anime. I'm a 90s anime guy, you know, like Neon Genesis, Dragon Ball Z, and like oh god, what was it called? Like Tenchi Muyo and Gundam, although Gundam is more 80s-ish, I guess. But it was on Toonami in the 90s. And what else? Oh, Fooly Cooley was during my heyday. And yeah, Neon Genesis was like a shining star. I got into the anime scene with Ranma 1/2 like in 94. This is about the same time that Ghost in the Shell came out. Akira had come out around about that time as well. So there was some like really dope anime that was starting to show up and demanding that it be paid attention to. And so all of our money in college went to booze, dope, and anime. Good times. Oh, Macross Plus. Holy shit, Macross Plus. God damn, what a great anime. That feels pretty good. Do like that. That feels about right. There we go. Perfect. Let's see. How am I supposed to figure out this coupling here? I can layer the joint so I don't have to show off the mechanics of it too heavily. But I need enough present to be able to properly get the feel of robot machinery. So I can... There we go. I'll make sure I don't make that too big. About like that. Which probably means, hold on. I know I'm doing this the hard way, but sometimes that's the only way I can do it. I could just draw a circle and then delete the middle. I mean like a big dot. But nope, I don't want to do it manually for some stupid reason. Probably means I need to make this thicker so that it includes the gear rotation, so it has something to be anchored to instead of just being a free-floating gear. That'd be stupid. That probably means I can thin this down a bit though, right? I feel like there's a conversation lurking somewhere in the back of my head, and it hasn't manifested yet. But I can feel its approach. And I want to say it's a conversation about emergent story versus plotted adventures, which I think is an interesting topic of conversation in general. And I certainly have a lot of opinions about it. So I'm thinking that's a conversation that's going to happen here, but I need a few minutes to lock down that space, and I don't think it's going to be me that's talking so much. So we'll see how that pans out here in a few minutes. But I can feel it. It might be a false start, but I can feel it. Let's do. You know what? Let's take that. Select, modify, contract by 3. There you go, because that's the size that we're working with right now. But if that conversation doesn't come through today, we'll just pick it up another time. I think it's a topic worth discussing. What is that? That's probably like what, 25 pixels? Select, modify, contract. Let's call it 22. Too much. 16. Select, modify, contract. 16. Ooh, not bad, Kearney. Select. No. Select. Modify. Contract. No. This is how we do it. Now. Select. Modify. Contract. Thank you, Timer. 3. Blip. Select, modify, contract. Select, modify, expand, Trixie's. Cool, we'll keep that. Here, select, modify, contract, what, like 6? Select, modify, contracts, 10. Yeah, okay, that'll do. And then select, modify, contract, 3. There, big wheel. Big gear wheel. Take this down to 3. That feels pretty good. It's off, so it shouldn't. Just grab this like this. I don't know if I'm going to have any particular conversation today. I feel like that's a conversation I want to have. Just don't think I'm in the right headspace to have it right now. Definitely want to be in the right headspace when I'm talking about DM stuff. So I want to be able to just freely flow and let the conversation take me to where it wants to go to. I'm not feeling that freedom of movement right now. So guess we'll be operating under limited capacity today. This is all going to work out. We spent a decent chunk of time last week talking about the squadrons and the objective of Vocath and the logistics that go into it. We covered a lot of technical details for the narrative portion of this expansion already, and I don't want to just necessarily keep reiterating myself for no reason other than to provide bobblehead conversation for people that are new to the channel. I think I have to own that I'm not always just going to be banging on like that, you know? Copy, paste, pre-transform, flip vertical. Okay, so let's, I guess what I can talk about is my my home table, my Eberron campaign. So the team when the team last left off, they had just completed a mission delving into the Kyber of a asteroid with platinum ore. And during the course of the adventure, they had discovered that there was they got called in to explore the space because some miners ended up dying with some sort of weird fungal infection. Their eyes, their mouth, everything was bubbling up with this weird moss. And it apparently killed them. So they wanted to make sure, you know, whatever the fuck that is, doesn't kill anybody else on the team. So they called in the experts, quote unquote, which is the characters that the players were portraying. And they delved into this place and they found that the moss was growing all over the inside of the space. And hold on real quick. So might be worth writing it out somewhere if you're gonna have to do it anyways. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I'm not there yet. I hear what you're saying. Yeah, for sure. Let's make sure that I'm doing this correctly for now. But yeah, okay. So Eberron, I'll ramble on about that for a while because that's fresh on my mind. Next game is on Wednesday. So they delve into the rock. They find the moss. They find that the moss is growing all over the rocks that are inside it. Like we were talking about last time, with the Eberron campaign that I have, the world got shattered, and so Kyber now exists inside of any asteroid of any large enough space to have a cavern inside of it. So they're on a mile-sized rock. It's got platinum ore all throughout it. But it's also pretty much guaranteed to have Kyber inside of it. So they knew there was going to be potential trouble. There's always potential trouble. Just like on Dune, there's always a worm. Whenever you mine spice. In the orbit of Eberron, whenever you're mining for minerals, there's always going to be Kyber. So you have to keep an eye out for that shit. I'm going to take this and do that. So I'm building some symmetry here, and then we'll build a gearbox here. This is the rock grinder that the ship can just basically park and, like a bug, just mange on the rock to create trebuchet stones to provide its own ammunition. Without, I mean, you have For those that don't know, the book that we created has, in the ammunition section, it has rules for harvesting like bolts to make crossbow, like to make harpoon bolts or ballista bolts, And is this? Oh, I see what's going on there now. Okay, merge down, and I got a little bit more merging to do down. There we go. Now we're back on task, and quarrying rocks off of open mountain surface. Like how long does it take for you to excavate stones large enough to fire off of a mangonel trebuchet or mangonel or trebuchet. There you go. So the rules are in there. So this ship is basically using. We'll have to provide advanced rules for like how many people do these gears represent when grinding up stone to create new trebuchet stones. Because we have 10, 5 here and then 5 mirrored. We have 10 trebuchet down here. That can, we can command as a squadron or as a stack of siege weapons to attack enemies that are far away. But I think this ship in particular wants to get up close and personal and clackety people pretty good with his big old claws. That. Nope. That. And clean that up. There we go. Gets chewed up, and then it falls down the ramp here into basically a lump that can then be distributed by autonomes to the trebuchets. Trebuchets are animated. They are tended by autonome loading crews that don't really have their own autonomous thinking, so they're basically just drones. And I want to put in separators here. Perfect. Okay, great. Yeah, so the team goes into the asteroid. They find this moss that's growing. They know it's poisonous, so they're having to be careful with it. It can cause, if they cause it to flume on them, it can cause poison damage to them, so they had to keep an eye out for that. Be delicate with this stuff. And while they're down there, they discover that there's a colony of insects as well that are basically eat stone. So they have some sort of symbiotic relationship with the fungus that they didn't really suss out before they ran out of time, before they basically collected everything they needed to get out. But these bugs dissolve stone but don't eat ore. So it's basically it's just like it would just their acid would just melt away the stone and they would eat it. Well, whatever nutritional value that holds for a bug. But there it was. So their thoughts are, if we can somehow control these bugs, we could make them pets and we could dissolve rocks by basically ranching bugs there. And that's when they found the elf corpse that had a flute that trilled in the same tone as the bugs. So they quickly realized, oh yeah, this is literally something we can do. There's a fucking elf that did it. But the elf was dead, so they looted the body, and during the course of the adventure, they lost the flute they basically dropped the flute 80 feet into a swarm of bugs that were pretty pissed off that they didn't know how to play the goddamn instrument. So like, whoa, there's no way we're going to go get that flute. Fuck. So they lost the flute, but they otherwise had amassed enough evidence and information to let the guild know what was going on at this place, like what got the miners killed, like this moss stuff, and they figured out that you can pretty much easily get around it by not disturbing it, walking carefully. And since the bugs were dissolving all of the rock that was holding the ore, they didn't have to go in hard and like do a lot of excavation work. They could go in and surgically break off like ice chunks of platinum that had all of its rock dissolved out of it. So it's pretty much like really pure platinum ingot that was just basically in these amorphous shapes. And they just had to go in and be able to like mason tools, just pick the things off, lump them off, and get out of there without having to step too heavily. But the bugs are pissed off. So when they went back and they basically reported, these are the things that we found, And that was the end of their adventure, because they said, we think we've gotten everything we can extract out of here with the resources we have available to us. This seems like a place for us to stop and report our findings, which is what triggered the end of the adventure. Then we did a guild update. So a guild update happens, every adventure occurs within 1 10-day. And at the end of the adventure, we fast forward to the end of the 10-day. And then we update the guild that the players control as the narrative for why they're adventuring, why they have characters to adventure. So they were operating as a dungeon delving spelunking crew that were basically exploration experts designed to assess threats to mining operations when you encounter Kyber, as they had. So that was like the specific role, the specialization of that specific team. But there's also espionage and spies. They have diplomats, and they have fighter pilots. So they have a number of different types of adventures with different types of characters and utilities available to them that they can conduct. Just depends on which adventure feels right for them to be playing at the time. And I need to adjust this leg. It's apparently off mark. And you don't do because you don't. Mark down, cut, paste. Thank you. One moment. That feels good. Okay, cool. So they know... let's fix that. The only advice they could really offer to the guild was, the bugs are a problem, try to avoid them. It's basically the best that they could do, because they didn't have the flute. They reported that there is a flute, and they saw that thing, but they lost it because of a bug swarm. So they don't have access to that, but they know for a fact that the thing's going to be communicated with. They collected samples of the spores from the moss, and they collected a dead bug as a specimen, but they don't have a living bug, so they can't really start figuring out, get some speak with animal going on, so that they can communicate with the creature and start understanding what its language is. They didn't have any druids. They couldn't do that on their own out in the field, but that's something they could invest resources in, to hire a druid to come in and do that research to build that rapport and build a language out of it that they could potentially duplicate. But apparently the flute was an item that was already built to do that. So we're doing a guild update. Each territory, the asteroids are in orbit around the planet, and the territories that the characters possess is in a geo-locked orbit where they don't move in their position on the planet, but the rocks do. So rocks are constantly entering and exiting territories that they control. They decided to spend all of their resources on buying 2 new territories so they can accumulate more resources quickly. And the platinum rock that they had been mining, at the end of each 10-day, you basically do an ability check, a mining ability check as a guild, to determine if you're able to successfully extract ore and gain resources from that work over the course of the 10-day. And they happened to fail the die roll for extracting ore from the platinum asteroid that they were just at. The goal of the mission was to clear the asteroid of obstacles so they could make a die roll to successfully extract the ore. It's basically an ability check. It's basically a strength check. And the DC at, keep in mind, these guys are level 1 characters, and their guild is basically level 1. So for them to be able to successfully extract and claim resources for the platinum rock that they were on was a DC 19. So it was highly unlikely that they were going to be able to succeed at that die roll. And they failed. So that means that obviously the resources are there, but something prevented them from succeeding at the task. That's how the guild ability check system works. It's yes, but, or yes and. So there's basically 3 modes. Either, yeah, you did what you said you were going to do. Yeah, you did something and you get some kicker out of it that you didn't expect. Congratulations. Or, yeah, it's there, but you can't actually benefit from it until you resolve whatever this complication is. And so they failed the die roll to extract the ore. So basically they now have a backlog of 2 sessions worth of ore that's waiting for them if they can resolve what the difficulty was. And it was pretty easy to, as a DM, just to say, well, we know they didn't solve the bugs. They figured out that they figured out a way to get around the moss by being careful and covering their mouths. But now they're dealing with pissed off bugs because they were careless about the bugs. So now the bugs are swarming, and anyone that tries to go near the platinum ends up getting killed. So they call in the team again, but the asteroid was floating out of territory into basically wild space where there are no rules. So instead of letting it roam free and risk piracy or poaching, they decided to invest additional resources to purchase the territory that was adjacent to theirs, that they could basically purchase that parcel of land, so that as the platinum rock drifted out of their orbit, they're purchasing the land that it's flowing into so that they could still mine it under their own military protection. But they failed the die roll. So, or rather, they made that purchase. So now what they do, since they failed the die roll, they have to send in a team to go do something about the bugs. They could do it with military, and in which case they're going to do a combat session where they're going to try to kill all the bugs. But they don't want to do that. They want to capture or understand the bugs so they can get the bugs working for them. And they could potentially use this as a test run to see if they can get the bugs to work with them or not. So it's more of a diplomacy mission that they're going in on this, to see if they can figure out how the bugs think and make them work for them. So that's their plan. But that's not the only problem that they had. There was another asteroid that was, they have another territory on the other side of their parcel, and it has, the word I'm looking for is, it's adjacent to elves. So space elves have a territory, and they are, for the most part, friendly to the different mining organizations that go out there and try to make a difference. And let's get rid of that. Let's merge down here. That's what I need to do. So I can copy paste this here. Give me a second here to do technical stuff. Free transform. Get that properly lined up. There we go. That feels good. So I can merge that down. So it looks like they've assessed what all the new rocks are that moved into new territories. They didn't detect any problems, like there's no pirates or there's no poaching, and there's no particular flying monsters out there that are going to grief their teams. So it looks like they're pretty clear to just harvest asteroids, except for one other territory on the other side, adjacent to the elves. Apparently the elves are now occupying one of their territories with warships. And they're like, well, fuck. That's like we don't know what to do about that. So they could go in with a military operation and take fighter craft and attack the warships, Star Wars style, to try to destroy the ships or force them into retreat to militarily and with a show of force control their territory. But the elves is a unified nation, and it is huge compared to the land to the resources that the characters have access to. So they're like, that's not a good solution. So that means they have either an espionage, diplomacy, either an espionage or diplomacy mission that they could conduct. But they can only conduct one mission at a time as players. And both of these things, the asteroid and the elven armada, the elven warships, are happening at the same time. So the players can only do one of them. So they chose to go after the bigger score, which is the bugs. Like, they're willing to lose that territory if they have to, because they just bought 2 more. And if they lose that territory, then, well, that's going to potentially cause additional military conflicts with the elves in the future. But they're going to, one step at a time. For now, they wanted to focus their attention on the bigger score, which is the bugs and the platinum. And so that means they're going to relegate resolving the conflict with the elves to a single die roll, which is either going to be an espionage check or it's going to be a diplomacy check. There's only 4 checks that they make: commerce, loyalty, espionage, and diplomacy. That's basically the only 4 types of rolls that there are. So it's technically commerce is the industry that oversees delving and asteroid rocks. Lore industry is espionage, as well as clairvoyance to see what type of asteroids are floating in orbit. There is military, which is the combat capabilities, fighter ships, vessels, outposts. Like if they grow large enough to create a secondary base, which would be a military outpost out in the wild reaches, like in the far realms, they could eventually afford to expand their dominion in that way. And then there is loyalty, which is diplomacy, as well as recruiting and replacing characters. So whenever you want to build a new team, that involves your loyalty. If you want to get access to new resources, that involves loyalty. If you want to make a contract agreement or an alliance with another organization or another guild, that's going to be a loyalty check, because you're basically testing your trustworthiness. And there could be complications that prevents that bug farm, exactly. So if they can succeed on their loyalty rolls, it has the same short-term result as a military roll would make. Military roll would be, the DC is 19. They're going to roll a D20 plus a D4 plus a 1. So their max, it's a range from 3 to 25, and they have to roll a 19. So basically, they have a 20% chance of success. And if they fail, it's whatever their failure means or their success means is going to be dependent on which industry they spent the resources on to execute the plan of dealing with the elves. And so they don't need to pick yet. They don't need to pick for another 3 weeks which industry they want to use. And they're just going to let that percolate for a little bit before they decide they know which is right. And I'm fine with that. I don't need to know the answer right now. But I know generally what the elves are doing. But I'm not going to share that here on stream with folks until the team has an opportunity to play that out. But needless to say, it's likely that they're going to fail because they have to roll a 19 out of 25, basically. So this all seems terribly complex, but I love how much thought has gone in. It's really just they're only making 2 die roll. They're making 1 die roll at the beginning of every 10 days to determine what asteroids are in space with them. If they succeed the die roll, they can mine it without a problem. If they fail the die roll, they know what's there, but there's something that's preventing them from being able to do it. And then the DM gets to improvise what that is based on the emergent storyline that's occurring as a result of the actions that they take. So there's a couple pre-cooked ideas and conflicts that I kind of thought about. That's basically on a roster. I could have made a random plot hook sort of thing if I wanted to. If I were to build this out into a document like a campaign setting, I could have a random like D4 starting conflicts to get the ball rolling, so that the team has the opportunity to make enough decisions to create cascading consequences for the actions that they take. They're going to choose combat. They're going to choose either hostility or peace when dealing with the elves. And the result of that check is going to basically set up what kind of a relationship they're going to have with the space elves for the rest of the campaign. And they know this. So they know they need to pay attention to that, and it's important. So that's why I think they're going to end up going with diplomacy, because they have a lot more to gain from a relationship with the elves than they do by trying to outmuscle them. But like on the other side is Dargoon. And Dargoon, although it's a single nation, it's actually a stack of different warlords and shogunates. So you can have a conflict with a single shogunate inside of Dargoon and not piss off all of Dargoon. Especially if you're in open territory. If you go into Dargoon space, then they are going to rally against you as a unified nation. Stay out of our backyard. We're having fights back here, because they're all fighting each other too. So like if they wanted to, they could form an alliance with one of the Dargoon shogunates and then start having a Dargoon-based campaign where they, as dwarves, gnomes, and warforged, start integrating in with the hobgoblins and the bugbears, the greenskins, to work with them to expand their organization and to have a dominion through conquest sort of campaign inside of their own nation. But for now, they're playing gnomes, dwarves, and warforged that don't have any alliances with any of their neighbors yet. So military is a viable option when dealing with Dargoon, and in many instances, given the nature of the greenskin, showing a show of strength in military and defeating what would be a smaller clan would show that they are worthy of diplomacy with. You can bring them to the table to have a conversation because they're proving themselves to be powerful warriors. Like that's an actual tactic that they're going to be able to use, but not with the elves, because you do anything against the elves, you piss off all the elves. So you can't play that way. Which is a good reason why there's a separation between Dargoon and the elves. I'm sorry, Dargoon's on the other side. These guys deal with Droam, which is even worse. Droam is a bunch of independent Medusa that basically have a council. So I guess it's kind of like shogunates, but they have a bunch of like basilisks, cockatrices, gargoyles, the Medusa. They have like this real stone theme going on amongst them, as well as like giants, and I think that's it. Stone giants. I think that's and I think they have some. Yeah, I think that's about the extent of them. They're all stone skins, so the unhumans, as it were. Yes, exactly. And They're sandwiched. They're actually sandwiched between Droam, the monster nations, and the elves. And the other side is on the other side of the world, in orbit over there, is the conflict between the greenskins and the elves. So that's but the same rules apply. You can a Medusa can have its own shogunate as well, or basically its own realm. Yeah, that feels pretty good. I like that. So the team can use military force against Droam, but if they're deemed to be too significant of a threat, they will attract a larger conscript of joint Medusa clan that will view the team as a threat. So they have to be very, very careful in conducting battle against Dargoon. Or, sorry, goddammit, I keep saying Dargoon. Droam. That's where I'm trying to go with that. Let's, So that's the other conflict that they're having to deal with right now. Let's see, am I getting this in place? Okay, well that angle is like way wrong, so I should probably just delete all that crap underneath it. Feels about like the right spot, you know? Bandoo. Yeah. There we go. That pretty much fixes everything. There we go. We go to here and we fix the lines. There we go. Like that. So this Wednesday they start to attempt taming the bugs. Now we'll see how well that goes. I'm looking forward to it. I want them to have the bugs. I want them to figure it out because I think that's fucking cool. But an interesting note that I don't think that they've fathomed quite yet is there was an elven bug rancher that was found dead in the asteroid that they're currently trying to find the flute of to tame and have the bugs become herders for them. I wonder who may have thought of doing that first. And now there's an elven warship that's occupying territory next to the plot of land that the Platinum Rock was in last cycle. So we'll see what the team decides to do about that. It'll be interesting to see if they have any revelations about how they want to handle this situation with the elves while they're dealing with trying to find the flute that the dead elf bug rancher was using on a species of rock-eating bugs that no one has ever heard of before. What could possibly go wrong? So that's where they're at right now. But it sounds complicated because I think about this shit a lot. But it's really, again, each die roll, it's just a spot check. If you fail the spot check, you see what's there, but there's a problem that you have to deal with. If you succeed the spot check, you see it, and there's no problems. So it's like a super binary system. They do that for each plot of land that they control, or for each additional plot of land that they don't control that they basically want to spy on using clairvoyance. So they can spy on a territory, but it costs them, if you invest resources into a territory, if it's available, you're effectively purchasing or like renting that space by investing a number of points of resources. But you can spend considerably less points for just right now taking a look at what's in that territory. If you invest in ownership, you get to scry that location for free every 10 day. If you don't control a territory, or if it's in an enemy's territory, it costs you points to do so every time you want to look. So it's investment versus spending points. I'm either investing my points to find out about a territory, or I am investing to own this territory and I want to find out more about it. Basically, the two modes that we have there. So the team invested in purchasing those extra territories that were in the path of the Platinum Stone, so they would have time to pick at it more if they needed to, because they really wanted to value that rock. So they invested in having it. Otherwise, they could have just swept in, tried to grab some resources off of it, and then fly out before anybody noticed them. And if they had succeeded the die roll, if they left it to being just with a single die roll, at the end of every 10 day, they resolve all the dice. If there were no problems in a territory, then they make basically a strength check to see if they can pull the ore out of the rock. And if they do, each type of ore has a certain gold piece value that gets converted into a resource that they can then spend to purchase territories or whatever. And if they fail that die roll, it means that the miners tried, but something prevented them from succeeding. And then at that point, they either have to let it go because it's out of their territory, or if it's still in their territory, there's a complication, so they have to find out what the problem is that needs to be solved, and that creates a new adventure nugget. And then they can decide if they want to handle it specifically as a dungeon delving adventure, as players, or if they want to leave it as a offstage activity that they're just allocating or relegating to members of their guild to resolve. And so if they relegate it to their guild, it becomes another single die roll. If it's a dungeon delving mission, it's a commerce check, because that's the industry that controls mining. So that's where your point of contact is for those type of operations. So it's a commerce check that you make. If it is if it's a military operation, if it's combat that they're expecting, or if they're planning for combat, then it becomes a military check. If they think that they'll have the opportunity to communicate with whatever it is that is creating trouble, then it could be a diplomacy mission that they conduct. And sorry, I'm doing a double check here. Yeah, that looks good. And if they want to, if they're snooping and trying to discover secrets or steal something, that's an espionage heist mission. And if the characters don't do that themselves, then it gets relegated to the lore industry. So there's commerce, military, lore, and loyalty. Loyalty is for diplomacy, lore is for espionage, military is for combat, and commerce is mining operations, which is rock delving. So only rock delving is required. Asteroids require. The only thing that delving can be used to do is exploring rocks. But you could also do an espionage mission or a military mission into an asteroid if you know that there's hostilities or something to explore, which normally starts off with a delving team poking around to find out what's going on, which could then convert into either a military or an espionage mission, kind of like on the fly. So like a delving team can double duty on different things. There's that. Let's clean that up. And the die roll either succeeds or fails. It's just an ability check. It either succeeds or fails. And if it succeeds, then you resolve the problem. You get information. This could trigger a new adventure. The reason why we're occupying this space is because we're looking for a missing prospector. He is a renowned archaeologist, and he's gone missing. And we're afraid something happened while he was delving into a rock. Have you seen an elf? And now the team has to decide if they want to tell the truth or not. If that, if that were, for example, the result of, say, a diplomacy mission that they had with the elves. If they decide to go with military, then it would basically be they would make a single die roll to see if they were able to succeed in driving away the elves with military strength. In all cases, these are both DC 19 because that is the difficulty of the space that the elves occupy. The elves are occupying that space. They will be a difficulty of 19 on the die roll to chase away, or the diplomacy mission has a diplomacy score. They have to roll a 19 or better in that circumstance, because that is the value of the territory currently. and that value changes as different rocks flow into it. So it's actually very minimal work on the side of the DM to like, well, I mean, as they gain more and more territories, they'll make more and more die rolls, which will either give them more resources every 10 day or create more challenges probably than what they can actually deal with. So they're going to probably have to relegate a lot of what's going on in their campaign to NPCs with these single die rolls. That could have disastrous results if they're not lucky. Let's see. That looks like it's doing good. Yeah, there we are. We're doing good. Let's get back to... So we'll see what they do with the bugs, and we'll see how the elves turn out. And if the negotiations go poorly, I don't know what that means yet. Honestly, I have no idea what will happen because I don't know what information they're going to learn during the course of the diplomacy. But basically, it's resolved in a single die roll, which means you weren't able to convince the elves to leave your territory at this time because, like for example, they're looking for an elf, and you guys need to account for that. Do you know anything about elves? Do you want to tell them or not? And then they get to decide if that's something they want to do or not. But like basically, like the elves won't leave that territory until they know what happened to their surveyor or whatever. So that creates a point of conflict. Like, it's in our best interest to be able to learn more about these bugs, but it looks like they're looking for them. So what the fuck are we supposed to do about that? Like, that becomes a very interesting decision that they will have the opportunity. Like, so far, they're like, I don't know about this. They like how the adventure was created, and they like that they have to make a choice. They see the potential of it. But once they actually have the result of that operation, basically they're going to get the same information no matter what. We're looking for this surveyor, but whether they succeed in the die roll or fail is going to determine if the elves become more hostile. If you fail the die roll, the elves will suspect that they actually know something about it and they're fucking with them because they failed their diplomacy check. If they succeed their diplomacy check, the elves don't actually suspect that the guild knows anything, and will actually will in sincerity ask for their help to find him. Like, if there's anything weird that you guys see in any of your operations, please let us know, because if he's trapped and he's hurt, we want him back. Without them necessarily saying anything about the bug population, or they might not even know about the bugs. You don't know that. But if they roll really well on their check, they might be able to glean additional information that they might not have otherwise gotten. Like, they may learn they're actually looking for somebody that was training bugs. So that's incredibly valuable information, yes. Now they can use that information to either lean into or to attempt to deceive them further. And we'll see how they decide to play it. But that is emergent gameplay. That is a storyline that is that I have ideas about where it may go, but I don't actually have any fixed decision about what needs to happen in the storyline. I honestly don't care. I just want to see what the dice do, because all of these situations sound like a lot of fun. So basically what like emergent gameplay is like most DMs, they build their game forever, and like they keep making it and they keep designing content and they keep writing cool ideas for it, and then when the campaign starts they probably never get to use like any of that content because it's beyond the scope of the actual adventure. Emergent gameplay allows you to do the exact same thing, but you don't do it until after the characters make a decision, and then you get to have your downtime between the next session to figure out what all that stuff means. And so you get to present them the next piece. Like, here's the next step you get to take with it. And the better you get as a DM at improvising storytelling, the more you can do it in real time on the fly with them during the game session in live space. So you can just start BSing answers with them as they start asking questions. I like to use dice. I have 2 6-sided dice that I use. One is the question. The other one is the answer. The question sets the difficulty. The answer is yes if you equal or exceed the die roll of the question, and it's no if you roll below it. So if I were to roll a 6, it's impossible. If I roll a 6, it's impossible for that to be the correct answer unless I roll a 6. If I rolled a 1, it is 100% that answer because I cannot roll below a 1. So a roll means absolutely yes. A 6 means it would be a miracle if it were yes. And then there's a scale of 1 to 4 in between the two of them. 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can use this by rolling 2 dice like Monopoly at any given time. The one to the left is the question, and the die roll to the right is the answer. In this instance, the question requires a 5. I rolled a 4, so whatever the question was, it's a no. So the question is, do the elves know for a fact that that their surveyor is in their territory right now? And I rolled a 4 on a 5, so the answer is no. They don't actually know, which means that they don't have a clear communication with what that surveyor was doing. Was that surveyor a spy of some sort, or like a defector? What does that mean about the elves? No one's ever heard of these bugs before. So how is it that elves have developed an entire species of rock-eating bugs, rock-eating beetles, that nobody knows anything about, but is like the absolute most convenient thing in the universe to have on an asteroid that you want to extract ore from the rock? That is super useful to have. Why don't we know about this? So there's some sort of tomfuckery going on here, and the players, the result of their die roll on either like if they go in espionage, they're absolutely going down that path, and they'll get that information, but they won't necessarily know what why the warships are parked there. They can extrapolate from their espionage that we think this is why they're doing that. But until they actually get into a diplomatic conversation with the elves, they won't know for sure. So they could go from a diplomacy into espionage, and they can also go from espionage into diplomacy. And of course, both of those can lead to military conflict, or it's really difficult to back out of military into diplomacy. But military can lead to espionage. So these things kind of layer into each other in a geopolitical sense of it. But it's simplified down to single die rolls for each task that they're trying to perform. So my job is to roll the dice or think of what does this conflict mean, and how much information am I going to give them with a fail, because they're going to get something out of a failure, and how much more will I give them if they succeed. That becomes my job, and that's the emerging gameplay that I as a DM get to write on the fly in some instances, only for the stuff that's important to the mission that they're currently on. So I'm not creating a story with a plot line that I'm going to push my characters through. I am allowing them to respond to the world that I'm presenting to them, and we both get to take reactionary steps to progress. As a DM, I progress the goals of the NPCs that are currently on the board as potential antagonists and protagonists, and the players get to make decisions for themselves. And in this instance, since they have Dominion, they also get to make the decisions for the guild that is representing the framework for the campaign. And I've got weirdness going on with my head. There we go. That's basically what I ended up doing, but because I'm kind of lazy, not as much deliberate way to run the campaign. Yeah. But this is intentionally structuring it so that it's not so that it's intentionally being organized this way, so that you know what your task and like what your chore or your homework or what game you as a DM are going to be playing on your own during your prep time during the week. That's when you get to play your own little world update game to go through all that process for all the different factions that are in play in the scenario that you're resolving right now. And that helps a DM enjoy the process of creating their world, because you could go down all sorts of rabbit holes about the bugs, about the surveyors, about the elves, about elven culture versus potential military operations there. So there's a lot of different paths you can take down in developing your world based off of this particular 10-day scenario. So that's essentially where I was trying to go. Like that's I believe about where I would have ended up in a conversation about emergent story versus planned stories, which is what we were kind of talking about earlier, like as a potential topic of conversation. But this was kind of like, this is the conclusion. Like this emergent play style is my absolute favorite. And if you really want to lean into it, all the players don't have any background for their characters until they gain a level. They have all you have is your background. Like you roll your background with your traits, your flaws, your ideals, and you just have those. That frames your character. And when you gain a level, you get to add a sentence to the trait, the flaw, the ideal. You get to lean in a little bit more. Like, why do I have that ideal? Where did that trait come from? What is my backstory? You can add a paragraph or even just a sentence to your backstory. So by the time you get up to say 5th, 6th level, you're starting to have a good little pinch of information about who's this character that you're portraying. And ideally, all the information that you're adding to your character is related to whatever adventure you just went on. So the whole team is continuously sculpting the story of their characters to reflect the events in the adventure that they're deciding on the fly to have. So the DM can then be very proactive about adding things to the storyline that are relevant specifically to their characters that are being portrayed. Because you're already creating that emergent next step as a DM, the players just allowed you access to just a snippet of additional information. So if you're looking for a plot hook connection, the very small amount of information that the players have the ability to offer about their characters is so finite that they go along with whatever it is that the DM layers in. Like I'm missing, like the example I've used in the past is like you're fighting bandits, and your character's backstory, like the only sentence you have on your character's backstory right now is, "I'm looking for my missing dad." And if the team is enjoying the bandits, like if they're trying to ally with the bandits, well then it turns out when you go back to camp and meet the chieftain, it's your dad. Because you added that into the storyline, but you had no other details about it. It's just, I'm looking for my dad. I'm sorry I had to resolve finding your dad so quickly, but pull you aside as a player. I could make this guy doing shady shit. Do you want him doing shady shit that you have to figure out? Do you want him to be a square shooter with you? Do you want to be surprised? Do you want him to be Robin Hooding for the goodness of things? Do you want him to be doing questionable stuff or bad things? And you can leave that as part of a piece of narrative that the player that triggered that event can be a part of sculpting into their backstory how they want to portray their relationship with their father. And if they really don't care, they can just randomize it, make it a die roll. Is he a good guy? Die roll, die roll. There you go, yes or no. Because as a player, as a DM, I legitimately do not care. The fun to me is what happens, what decisions do they make, and what does that trigger of the things that I do know. All I want to know is, what do I do with what I know next? Because I don't care, because I'm going to find out something new that I get to incorporate into my world now. I just want to know what that is, because I'm dying to find out what are these factions going to evolve into once we start peeling off the layers and getting underneath there. Are they as pure as they say they are? Are they corrupt somehow? Do they have secret benefactors? Is there some sort of a side plot that's going on here? These are all emergent experiences that happen as a result of the collaboration between the player and the DM, both not being committed to anything in the story until something in the story grabs your attention. It's like, that's fucking cool. Let's play with that. And you'll have the flexibility and the lack of commitment to anything else, so you can easily, this is the jam you want, this is the jam we're going to do, let's rock. And then you build it into whatever that campaign is. Like normally in a normal D20 structured campaign, there's so many plot hooks. If you are strewing plot hooks about your campaign world as thickly as you could, you're going to end up with more plot hooks and storylines than they're going to be able to properly process before tension escalates in the campaign world as a result of the things that they did decide to do. They're constantly being ratcheted towards level 20. With every decision that they make, they are raising the stakes of the campaign world around them to evolve into bigger conflicts that will be suitable for the level of characters that you're evolving them into over the course of the campaign. Like that's the goal of these plots and storylines, is to take your character from wherever it is that they started at and to lead them to the natural conclusion of where they need to be as a result of the actions that the decisions that they're making. And if it's fully emergent, then it's going to be a unique experience that only their table will ever really experience, because it's all being triggered off of the decisions that they make for themselves and their characters. And that makes for a very rewarding game table experience. And that's my preferred DMing style. So that's why I can keep a table. Like I've had 4 level 1 to 20 campaigns now in 5th edition. I can build those because that's the way that I sculpt my campaigns. I build Dominion into them, so there's always something bigger and better they can do, and they can always expand the scope of it. And I'm always looking for ways that they can up the stakes and increase their resources to be able to do more with what they have, so that they are constantly leaning into becoming more and more heroic, being able to accomplish more and more impossible tasks, because that's what's really fucking cool about role-playing games, is being able to do the impossible. At least that's my table, right? I mean, that's how we think. Your mileage may vary, but I have like 100. The only reason I lose players is because I either fire them because they are misbehaving and they ran out of warnings, or they have to move. Like, I mean, otherwise I never lose players. So if their schedule breaks and they can't play anymore, they can't play anymore. But I don't have people leaving saying, "Boy, I don't like this campaign. This is boring the fuck out of me." It's like, no, I've got a proven track record of taking people from level 1 to 20, basically within 250 hours. If you can commit 250 hours on a weekly basis, I'll get you there. Stick around. Let's have fun. And that allows me to build a very stable table that I can basically build on and run from, campaign to campaign over and over again, which is just a huge joy to me as a DM. I'm not bragging. Don't, what the fuck happened there? Where'd all this gobbledygook come from? Is there more weirdness like that hiding in here? Nope. Hey, look at that. We're getting the line art done today. It's almost 9:30, so we can clean up this line art and we'll be done for the day. Ugh, God, that's some stinky line art. Let's just delete all that shit and pretend it never happened and do it all over again. When the morning light comes streaming in, get up and fucking fix it. Not to brag, I'm just saying it's when I speak about these different modes of game and like my preferred style, this is my frame of reference so that you understand where I'm coming from and like what kind of games I prefer to run. But I've ran so many games over for such a long period of time that it's very relaxing for me to be able to build these different ideas. They just manifest in the moment when I need them, and I trust that whatever bullshit needs to happen is absolutely going to happen, because I've got decades of experience of proving time after time after time that this is going to work out. Trust me. And I can trust it. I can legitimately trust, this is going to work out. It's going to be awesome. And they're giving me everything that I need to be able to successfully run this campaign. I have zero worries. I just let it play out. And so when I take when I take a pre-written adventure like Light of Xeraxis or Descent into Avernus or Horde of the Dragon Queen, I know what the beats of the adventure are, but then I can start spinning them to work to work differently, right? To add in new options, to expand the type of encounters, to increase the scale, to look for opportunities, to build that Dominion play into the adventure. Like we were talking about Dragonlance at the beginning of the session. Like Dragonlance is like the perfect mass combat example because it's a setting about war, as much as they can. They don't have any mechanics for it. They have the fray, the big mechanical change that they made for Dragonlance was the fray. That if you are within 10 feet of a wall of people fighting, you might take damage as a result. Like make a saving throw. That's their big solution to mass combat in D&D. It's like it just forgive my smugness, but it literally makes me laugh. It's like I would love to invest the time in converting that entire book. God, what a massive project. It would literally take years with the amount of content that would be necessary. But fucking A, man, what a feather in the cap, Like that's one of those classic here, hold my beer sort of things. I'll be back in 2 years. Show you what I did. Like it's like that legit sounds inviting. I'm trying to talk myself out of it right now because it's such a heavy lift. Look at that shit. That's a pretty clean floor plan. I am rather happy with that. It's sufficient for line art. And then we drop in our base background here. No. Yes? No. Wait. I sound so smug sometimes when I talk. I have to keep with the humility, I mean it with I mean it with all enthusiasm and sincerity. What's up? Did you flop the legs again? Yeah. Flop the legs? I don't know what you mean. Was ist das, Flop? Duplicate, no. Free transform. Flip barnacle. Up in here. That looks pretty lined up. Yeah, I think that's good. Let's take both of these. Burp. Merge. Burp. Group for transform. Here we go. Flip legs on the bottom of the ship. No, this is exactly how I intended it to look. This has got the it's all this is the proper way. This is facing upward now, and where'd it go? That's the bottom. And that's the top. See the difference? You can see the top of the joint here. And here you can see the bottom of the joint. So they are properly facing. This is the bottom, so they'd be facing up. And then when we come back and we start building out the top half, it'll be facing down. You can see the top perspective cascading downward. So I'll have the up and the down side. And then we'll drop the arena on top of it like a plate. So we'll build out the under mecha as a separate underlayer. That's like the layer of separation between what we already know about the facility, and then that sandwich layer, the interior space for cargo and stuff like that. And then now we have the underbelly, which is the reverse part of the deck. So yeah. That's what you're asking, right? Yeah. So nope, it was good. I don't know if I necessarily am in love with this, but I think these will be neat, like a bunch of bolts, latching this all together. I think that once we start colorizing it, I think it'll look a lot more fun. But I think that's it for today. So we have that, and we have the actual background here. That is the... hold on, let me fold this up. Wait for it. Underside. There we go. That's the underside. And the ship is parked on the underside now. But see, this space is large enough. When we're here, it's just... Ooh, yeah, it's kind of tipping off, isn't it? Maybe I want to pull that in a bit. I like the idea of it just being inside of that space here. That's got 2x2. I might rebuild this bottom so it's actually encompassing the full circle. I don't have to make that decision right now, but I think that's going to be what I end up doing. It feels right, so I think I'm going to end up doing that. But not today. We're at 9:30. So I'm going to go ahead and put the park on here. When we come back, we'll fix that underbelly, and then we'll start working on the top deck. This is coming along great. We'll be able to build out the top deck, the loose frame of it, and then we'll be able to zoom into the 5-foot scale and put in all the details for this stuff. And then we'll rebuild the arena on the top deck with the weapon system and the adjusted position of the tower. And that'll take care of the ship floor plans and the battle schematics for that. We'll be able to build out, once we have the ship painted, we'll also have to do the color version of the ship as well. So we're getting basic token taken care of, but then we have the coloring to do, so that'll take 20 hours, I'm sure. So we'll get to that. But once we have it all colorized, then we'll have our token built that we can then build a ship card out of, and then we'll be able to build the squadron cards for this ship and all the other ships that are in the vicinity with it versus the Starmoth squadron ships. That'll give us the technical that'll give us the technical details, which I'll probably want to play test. So I'll probably spend a few weeks basically running that battle a couple times just to see how it plays out and if it's fun, to make sure everything jives well. And then we'll be able to lay in the storyline and the modifications to the outcomes of driving Zelith away. And then we'll publish it. So as a casual side project, it'll probably be done in July, I would guess. I'm only picking at it a little bit here and there. So it's a slow project. So July feels about right, but it'll be a really fucking fun edition. We'll have the asteroids by Saturday, so you'll see a bundle for the Spelljammer project crop up this weekend. That way it'll be the 100 asteroid tokens in addition to all the tokens and stuff that you get in the Spelljammer book. $15 for the Spelljammer book in the bundle, $1 for the 100 tokens of asteroids plus star maps. Like star fields as backdrops, and so it'll be $20 full price for Spelljammer, $4 full price for the asteroids. Bundled package is down to $16, so it's 33% off. Anyone that's already picked up the Spelljammer book, no matter how much they paid for it, it'll only be an extra $1 to get all of these additional asteroid assets if you feel that's necessary. If you don't need them, if you're playing at a kitchen table, just go out and grab some gravel, from the yard, and those make fine for asteroids. But if you're on a virtual tabletop, having some rocks is pretty nice. So hey, while I'm here, I'll hit save and be done with that. But while we're here, we may as well just take a look at all of them real quick. So here's our rock bench. Here's a slew of them that we've created. These are clusters, just little groups of asteroids that you can change the size of in opportunity. I could work on these things for like 1,000 years, dude. 1,000 fucking years. Oops. There's those, and then we'll pack that away. And then here's like a bunch of just individual asteroids. I love these so much. They're so fucking fun. Stop your stacking. Here, I'll show off some of these individual rocks. I'm gonna resize some of these so that the actual file space is smaller. That's something I need to do still. But these are great little rocks, man. These were fun to make. They all have their own little character, and then the next set is a different style. So here's some more clusters. See, these are more smooth. Those are a little rougher. This is a different style of rock here, so you can mix and match them together. Different lighting effects going on here. Cute little pockmark. And this one needs to be reduced a lot, but more asteroids here. Boop, boop. So yeah, got about 87 of them so far. And I want to have a clean 100, 50 clusters and 50 individual rocks, so that if you decide to pick up these assets, there'd just be a shitload of options for you to be able to populate any kind of garbage that you want in space for ships to have to fly around or could hide in among, depending on how large of a scale you decide these things occupy. And I'll close that off. And then bunch of rocks, just a bunch of rocks. They're all different. Throw gravel at your friends. No, I don't have any shipwreckage pictures. There's only the Lucent Edict is a wrecked ship. So I haven't built out any derelicts. So there's infinite stuff that you could do. It's not a bad idea to build broken down versions of each of the tokens, but maybe if I want to run another sale at some time in August or something, I might do that, but not for now. Gotta pick my battles. All right. Really, it's just a matter of how, what do I want to devote my time on. Spelljammer is really that fucking cool. Vocath, the Monarch, the Ogre Mammoth ship, the Neogi Mind Spider, the Octopus, the Kraken, and the Dreadnought for the Illithid. I could potentially do the Wu Tsunami. I don't think I'm gonna do the Tsunami. Fuck those guys. But then that's all the mega ships. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ship. Well, the Octopus is only 150 feet. The Kraken is 300 feet, and then the Dreadnought's 500 feet. Ogre Mammoth 500 feet. Elven Monarch 500 feet. Oh yeah, and the Dwarven Citadel, also a 500-foot block of stone. Oh Jesus, that's gonna take for fucking ever to build. I'm gonna love doing it. So that's 6 mega ships that I need to build. And then somewhere along the way we'll start working on the mecha pilot book, where instead of being ship and animal shaped, they're robot shaped, people shaped, so that you can pick up, and we can have like 50-foot swords running around as slashing rams and do stuff like that. And then once we do that, then we can start doing mega size, like kaijus and mega giants. And start populating all the Spelljammer 2nd edition stuff that was huge and like beyond massive size. Start statting all that stuff out. Don't know if I'll ever bother doing the Spelljammer itself, but once I churn through all that content, I could do like Ravnica space. I could do Theros into Nyx, like make Nyx the astral space. Instead of wild space, you're just flying into the afterworld, which is a very Ulysses 3031 vibe. If you haven't seen Ulysses 3031, it was an old cartoon in the early 90s that was basically the Ulysses in space. It was super fucking cool. But that's a very thorough Spelljammer thing to do. And then, of course, Eberron Spelljammer stuff that I do. So like that's like 3 whole campaign settings. I could spend a lifetime doing Spelljammer stuff like this. That's on top of the martial power system, the color mana rework, the Eberron adventure that I'm currently creating, potentially putting up the random adventure generator for Eberron, and how to build a dungeon book, which I might not make Eberron, I might just make general. Like 3 years from now, I'm sure there'll be a taste for some more how to build dungeon stuff out there that I might be able to slide into. The mass combat system. The guild system, the heist system, the magic scrap resource system. It's a shitload of stuff. That's like 6 years worth of crap right there, easy. So we'll see how everything shakes out. We'll see what I get to and what crops. Oh my God, the Modron army. Once the mass combat book gets built, I can start doing, and the kaiju book will be out. I can start doing the Modron army with like little, small size little round balls up to like 1 mile sized terror drones of like thousands of interlinked Modrons forming these massive constructs. We have the tech for it. The roots of it are inside the Spelljammer book, but I want to pull them out more with the mecha. I want to pull them out more with the mass combat rules. I want to pull them out more with the kaiju. And once I have the mecha, the kaiju, and the mass combat out, then I can start building things of any scale, of any size, and have it all meshed together. That's a lot of work. Like, here's some. But yeah, it's just. Oh my God, you're a Ulysses 3030. Oh, fuck yeah, man. That show is so dope. I loved it. God, I love that show. The Trident ships, it's very fun stuff. Very, very fun. Awesome, man. That's it for tonight. Thanks a lot, folks. Anyone that's checking this stuff out, appreciate you being here. I'll be back in the morning to do more Eberron stuff, and we'll just keep pushing shit forward until we publish something and replace it with something new. So, right on, guys. Yeah, right on. All right, catch you guys later.